Welcome everyone. I'm Jeffrey Goodman, Director of Marketing and Development for the YMCA of Northwest Louisiana, and we're here today for Shreveport-Bossier, my city, my community, my home. It's not every day that Ellen and I get to sit down with a former mayor, but that's exactly what we're doing today. Today's guest is Mayor Hussey, who I've known all my life. I was just telling him off camera, he's probably known me longer than I've known myself, so thanks for doing this today.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Well, I'll hop in. As I told you, I've got a few questions for you. So my first question is, you were the mayor of Shreveport from 1982 to 1990, and for the 4 years before that, you served on the Shreveport City Council.
Right.
For someone out there considering a career in politics, in your opinion, what are some of the traits that make someone effective in politics?
Well, experience helps, and it's best to start off at a lower level, as I did. I ran for the city council thinking I was going to be there for 4 years and move on to other things. But I enjoyed it a lot, and so being on the council, it allowed me to learn about the city, about the city's budgets, and all of the personnel. And so I would recommend that people start at a lower level and then move up.
And aside from experience, what are other traits that allow someone to excel or be effective, in your opinion?
Well, you have to have a real interest in what's going on. Some people are interested in city politics, and a lot of people are not interested in it. So you need to develop an interest in it, and then once you do that, learn about the technical aspects of budgeting and so forth, which is the very dull stuff that you need to know.
And just in terms of a kind of personality, what kind of personality? I mean, any kind of personality can be successful, or what sort of personality do you think that's a good fit with what this job is going to demand?
What people think of a politician is somebody who's a backslapper, glad-hander, and there's a lot of those, but that's not necessary. If you are interested in people and interested in the city problems, you can work through those without being a glad-hander.
And one reason that we started this Shreveport-Bossier, my city, my community, my home initiative was because we felt our community had a self-esteem issue, and we needed to spend more time highlighting the positive aspects of who we are and of ourselves. Do you feel like Shreveport-Bossier has always had a negative self-image, or what do you think led to this feeling that seems fairly rampant now in our community?
Well, I think we have for a long time had a self-esteem issue. There was a Baptist preacher here, and he gave a speech about Shreveport and how it had a negative issue, but negative attitude toward ourselves. And that speech was given in the 1980s, so it's been going on for a long time.
And what do you attribute that to? Because you grew up here. Were you born in Shreveport?
I was born in Shreveport.
In 1934.
34.
So, I mean, do you feel like that existed through your childhood and through your early years?
I don't know about childhood, but Shreveport was a booming city in the 1950s, mainly because of the oil business. Shreveport had terrific natural resources. We had oil, we had a great timber industry, and great farming, and we didn't have a lot of manufacturing. But when the oil business kind of went bad in the mid-1960s, I guess, a lot of the large businesses moved out of Shreveport. The oil businesses consolidated in Houston. We lost United Gas, we lost Texas Eastern, and several others. And so the leadership at that time decided that we would develop some manufacturing businesses. And we brought in, the main one was Western Electric, that later became AT&T. And then we had a General Electric plant, a Ford plant. So all of a sudden we turned into a manufacturing city. And our manufacturing percentage of employment was much larger than that of the state of Louisiana. The state of Louisiana still relied on all of its resources, primarily oil. And
do you think as we made that shift to manufacturing, our self-esteem remained intact during that early period?
It remained intact when they brought in those manufacturing businesses, but the moving out of the oil companies was a shock to everybody. Shreveport was growing. Every 10 years our population would increase. Then all of a sudden it was not. So we had to go in a different direction. Brought in manufacturing. And when I became mayor, we had a great Western Electric plant. They employed over 5,000 people. And that was those were great jobs. We had, of course, the General Motors plant that had even better jobs. So our economy was humming. And then within the time that I was mayor, the oil business faded. And in addition, a lot of those manufacturing plants moved out of the country. Western Electric jobs went to the Middle East. The General Motors jobs went to Mexico. And so all of a sudden we had all of these empty plants, nobody working. So that'll give you a bad attitude.
And you think that was kind of the start of what we may still be feeling a little bit today?
Definitely so.
Okay. All right. I'm a visit probably something that wasn't a high point of your life, but in doing my research, I was interested to be reminded of this. So I would imagine one of the more difficult events you oversaw during your term in office were the riots that occurred in Cedar Grove in 1988. I came across a quote of yours that appeared in the Washington Post days after rioters looted and set fire to businesses in Cedar Grove, where you said, "We've got problems in our economy. We've got problems in our racism. We've got many other problems." We're now 34 years removed from the Cedar Grove event. Would you still say something similar about the state of our community now?
Yeah, I think so. We have had racial problems for a long time, and they've continued. We have a lot of white flight. When I was mayor, 60% of our population was white and about 35% black. That's now switched. And the primary reason is that people are leaving Shreveport. They're going to the suburbs, Blanchard, Keithville, but primarily to Bossier City. When I was growing up, Bossier City was the place that had a lot of bars. And as a young person, I would find my way out there. But nowadays, Bossier City has great subdivisions. It's a bedroom community for Shreveport. That's happened not only in Shreveport, it's happened in southern cities all across the South. Jackson, Birmingham, even in Dallas. But that presents problems when people are moving out of the city. Our population increased every year from 1950 until 1990. And then in 1990, there's somebody waving to me. 1990, the population decreased by about 20,000 people, and that was a shocker to a lot of us.
That's in a 10-year census,
in a 10-year period, we lost 20,000.
Wow, which is close to 10% of our overall.
Yeah, and when that happens, that'll give you a bad attitude. It's discouraging, and so we need to get our economy started up again. We need to develop more jobs and bring people back to the city. And if we don't do that, well, then the city is going to have problems for a long time.
And from your perspective, what are some of the areas of our community that may be struggling even more than they were? I mean, I know you've talked a little bit about this, but struggling even more than maybe they were when you were the mayor.
Well, the number one thing when I was mayor, the difference between now and when I was mayor, was that loss of manufacturing jobs. When you lose 5,000 jobs in one plant, that's just devastating to your community. The people who worked in those plants, they had great jobs with great benefits. I ran into a fellow recently who was head of the union at General Motors. He was a friend of mine. He had retired, and I asked him how he was doing. He said he was just doing fine. He made a lot of money at General Motors. Bought a house, had a boat, had a car, cars, sent his kids to college, and so he did that on a General Motors job. We don't have those jobs anymore, so we need to develop new jobs. I'll give you an example of how things have changed since I was.
Please.
In the field, not really high tech, but just tech field. When I was mayor in the 1990s, we didn't have telephones, didn't have email. A lot of the communications was done by fax machines. And we had the city of Shreveport had a pretty advanced technical office, but we only had 2 fax machines in the city. And we would get a fax, and people would gather around and watch the fax come in. It was a different world, Jeffrey. Nowadays, of course, you wouldn't. I have a fax machine, but I don't use it.
Right.
We didn't have the telephones. We didn't have email, so that makes for a different world.
Absolutely.
And it's like for telephones, people my age have telephones. I carry one around. My grandchildren have telephones like that. They only communicate that way. So we're living in a different kind of atmosphere, and the kind of jobs you're going to have are different. Anyway, that's a big change that happened.
Yeah. Well, on the other side of that, what are some of the areas of our community where we seem to be doing better, maybe, than when you were mayor?
Well, the transportation in Shreveport is very good. One of the things that we have done, and it was a lot of the planning was started in the 1950s. You can drive to any place in Shreveport in 15 or 20 minutes. And you get there, I hear some people complain about the traffic. I remember there was one guy who came to me. He said it just takes forever to get to work. And he was driving to work, and I said, well, time yourself. And he timed himself. It took him 15 minutes to get to work.
Yeah.
And I have a son who lives in California, and he spends half an hour getting to work. And that's a short commute in California.
Right.
I have a grandson who drives from Dallas to north of Fort Worth to go to work, and his commute is an hour. So it's a different. We have great transportation, and that's something we've had for a long time, and will have. We contrast ourselves with Baton Rouge, for instance, and done no planning at all.
Right.
Driving around Baton Rouge is a torture. So.
What else do you see that you feel like, you know, this is an improvement upon the way it was in the?
Well, the transportation is a big advantage. Having a smaller community is an advantage. And I think sometimes we look at the successes of larger communities and think that we want to be like them, but Shreveport is not going to be like them. You don't go from being Shreveport to Dallas overnight. I have my son Brennan has 3 children. They're now 26 years old. None of them live in Shreveport. One lives in Baton Rouge, one lives in Austin, and one lives in Dallas.
They're triplets of people out there trying to do the math. And
that's right. They're triplets.
Right.
They're 26 years old. They like Shreveport, but they would never come back here for a career. They all have careers that are elsewhere. Does
that bother you or keep you up at night, or does that feel like a failure on some part of something?
No, I don't think so. It's just an indication of how the economy in other places is better than it is in Shreveport.
And when you say, you know, there are benefits to being smaller, what do you mean by that exactly?
Well, with a smaller community, you can have the leadership that can have an impact. If you're in a larger community, that's difficult to do.
Okay, so I'm down to my final question with you, which is, as you look around, what makes you optimistic about the next 10 years and the next 20 years of this community?
Well, as evidenced by your programs, there are a lot of people in Shreveport who are interested in the future of Shreveport. Shreveport is a great place to live. I wouldn't think of living anyplace else. Of course, I never have. But I'm not starting out in my life with a career. I've pretty much had my career, and so I'm optimistic in that there's a lot of people who are interested in the future of Shreveport. They want to do something about it, and they're interested in it.
They're concerned.
They're concerned about it, and they want to improve it, and they want people to come back here and live. And so that's my main reason for optimism. For instance, you live here, you can live other places. You have lived in other places, and but you're back here now at the Y. I'm optimistic about what all the programs that the Y has going on. They're doing a great job. But we need to improve our economy. We need to have more jobs. And that should be the number one concern of the leadership today.
And you're optimistic or believe that we can possibly turn that corner? Or
I think so. We've done it before. We're not going to be Austin, but we can be a successful community. Great place to live.
Well, I appreciate you, Mayor. I appreciate all you've done for this community. I appreciate all you've done for me. You've always been selfless and made time for me and been a guide and mentor. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. You're doing a great job, Jeffrey. The YMCA is a very progressive entity for us, and it's been doing a lot of good things.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Good to have you.
It was good to be here.